Welcome back everyone to the Working Class Revolt, and today I want to do a bit of a different video. Normally I do daily or weekly news updates, but today I want to talk about the comparison between Keir Starmer's new government and David Cameron's new government that came in 2010, and I want to ask an important question, and that is, are we in some type of play? Are we in some type of movie, like a Groundhog Day that just keeps repeating itself? Is the people far powerfuler than the Prime Minister that are just having a laugh on our behalf? And when I say that, it's because of clips like this. This is David Cameron in 2010.
I think the problem we have in Britain, we just have to face up to it. And I think, above all, that's what British people want their politicians to do. We are borrowing this year, 13% of our GDP. We have the worst budget deficit of any developed country. And we have to face that problem. And I think it would be totally irresponsible, as the government is doing, to just put off dealing with that problem to some time in the future. We need to make a start on dealing with it this year, 2010. Now, of course, that does mean some tough decisions. But the sense I get from the British people is they know we have a problem. They know we have too much debt. They know that our deficit is unsustainable. And they want a government that's going to give the leadership to say, come on, let's deal with this together. We'll try and make sure that it isn't too painful a process. But we know if we don't do it, we could end up in a situation like Greece or other countries that are...
And this is Keir Starmer when he got elected as Prime Minister earlier on this year.
Coming in October. And it's going to be painful. We have no other choice, given the situation that we're in. Those with the broadest shoulders should bear the heavier burden. I'll have to turn to the country and make big asks of you as well, to accept short-term pain for long-term good, the difficult trade-off for the genuine solution. And I know that after all that you have been through, that is a really big ask.
There we can see David Cameron in 2010 and Keir Starmer in 2024, two different parties, one the leader of the Labour Party and one the leader of the Conservative parties, basically speaking identical. Now the ironic thing is, both of these people came in after 13, 14 years of the other party being in power. And there was the change candidate. There was the one who said no more, in David Cameron's case, no more of 13 years of the Labour Party, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Everything was positive. And Keir Starmer this time kept going on about 14 years of the Conservatives, of austerity, and he was going to be the change candidate. But what we saw, basically identical, was David Cameron come in and say that the note was left by the Labour Party that there's no money. And now he must do austerity and cuts, because the Labour Party had wasted all this money. They'd ran the country into the ground, and now he had to make the tough choices. But don't worry, we're all in this together. You all remember him saying it. Big Dave, 6 Foot Dave was the nicknames when he was campaigning that the newspapers did for him to make him sound like one of the guys, one of the lads. And then he told us how tough it was going to be for him included, which I always find really insulting when multimillionaires said that we're in it together. If I had money, I certainly wouldn't pretend to somebody who didn't have money that I felt the same pain as they did do, because you don't. And then Keir Starmer, since becoming Prime Minister, has told us about 10 years of hard times to fix the past 14 years of austerity. So ironically, what Keir Starmer's now saying is, we're going to have 10 years of austerity to fix 14 years of austerity. And what really gets to me and winds me up is that if either of these people said this running up to a campaign, running up to an election, they would not get elected by the United Kingdom, the residents of our country. But instead they lie and tell us how different everything's going to be, and then they identically, just like each other, say, oh, but now we've got to change it because the last government was so bad. Now, what I think it could be the case is that there are people far more powerful than David Cameron or Keir Starmer. And every now and then they decide, I'm on about the people who own the banks or own the oil or whatever they own, the stock markets, and they decide, right, Now is a time where we're going to bring in a lot of cuts, we're going to ruin the economy, and then we're going to buy everything up when it's cheap. And when you've had a government in for 12, 13, 14 years, it's very hard to do it with that government because you've got people trying to cling on to power. So although they may well have been controlled at the start, they don't want to lose that power they've got. And for certainly in the Conservatives' case this time, you had a lot of backbenchers who would rebel against the government. I think the Conservatives lost favour with the mainstream media and the deep state when it delivered on Brexit. There was around 100 to 150 MPs led by Jason Rees-Mogg who would actively get rid of a Prime Minister and campaign on behalf of the people of the United Kingdom, and that was really good to see. So I think it got to a point that if you want to bring any drastic changes in, you need to bring a fresh new government in who can claim the old government has made that much of a mess that they had to. So if anybody actually believes that the government didn't know they was going to cut the winter fuel payment, or we're going to see with the upcoming budget that they're going to raise national insurance. They're going to say it's just on the bosses, not the workers, but that doesn't take into consideration the 5.5 million small and medium-sized businesses, which are certainly working people. We saw with David Cameron's government when it came in, it started cutting money off the sick. And now the Labour government is saying exactly the same. Now, if you look at Keir Starmer and David Cameron, one thing they both have in common is they are very, very, very controlled. I don't think neither of these two would know how to tie their own shoelaces unless they was told what to do first. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But my prediction is that unless we have an absolutely huge shake-up and we get an outside party like the Reform UK in, or even some type of mixed parliament where we have, let's say, and I'm not a fan of the parties to the left, but let's say we have a lot of Green Party MPs come in, but a lot more Reform UK, and we have a mixture of all different types of MPs where coalitions are being joined. And although that's messy and nothing gets passed through, what it does do, it makes the powerful parties have to compromise on a lot of things. We're going to get 10 years of Keir Starmer cutting and cutting and cutting. He's going to shrink our army even more. He's probably going to get us to rejoin the EU or definitely rejoin certain factors of the European Union. And then what will we see? We will see a Conservative Party get elected and talk about the last 10, 12 years of how bad the Labour Party is going to be. And they're going to be the party of change, and they will take us down the same rabbit hole. Now, in the United States of America, something different happened. We got Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump did it a slightly different way because the way that it's set up over in America, you literally just have to be a member of the party, have enough backing behind you to stand to be the candidate of that party. So what Donald Trump did, after weighing up his options of being an independent, he literally just took over the Republican, the Conservative Party, and then you got a president who wasn't controlled. Now, a lot of people who are watching this channel will not like what I'm going to say next, but we nearly got the same with Jeremy Corbyn. Now, Jeremy Corbyn's policies are far different than mine, and let me make this clear, I wouldn't want to see a Jeremy Corbyn government, but Jeremy Corbyn was not controlled opposition to start with. Jeremy Corbyn was an outsider who managed to get through the cracks of the Labour Party's process and become the leader of the Labour Party. Now, Jeremy Corbyn, whether you like him or not, he had very socialist values, but socialist values that had always been the same. At least you knew what the guy stood for, like you do with Farage, more on the, well, I wouldn't say right with Farage, but more centre to the right. Now, the problem with Jeremy Corbyn was he faced a choice. He was going to get obliterated at the next general election. He'd had a lot of pressure put in by the mainstream media, and somebody who'd always been a Brexiteer, like many people on the left are, because people on the left are very anti-establishment, or at least was until Brexit. Jeremy Corbyn did a U-turn. And what happened to him? He still got annihilated in the elections, but he sold out on his values. But we did nearly see an outsider, somebody who wasn't meant to get in power, get in. And then we had Boris Johnson. Now, Boris Johnson had always had one foot in both camps. He had one foot in the camp of elites. He went to school with David Cameron and George Osborne, but he was never meant to be leader. And then he found himself, because of Brexit, as the Prime Minister. He delivered on Brexit. A terrible deal, I'll say, but he delivered on Brexit. And what happened to him? The mainstream media got rid of him. Do you really think the mainstream media, if Boris was the chosen Prime Minister, would have just made sure the stories about the party didn't come out? But they needed to get rid of him and get a safe pair of hands in Keir Starmer. Look what they did to Liz Truss. We're supposed to believe that the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom making an announcement about cutting tax and shrinking the size of the state caused the whole world to nearly go into recession and the stock markets to go into turmoil. Absolutely garbage. The United Kingdom doesn't hold that much power anymore, and the rest of the world do not care whether we cut tax. But the powers to be, through the mainstream media and their influence, got rid of them people, and now what we see is the next David Cameron in Keir Starmer. But unless the Reform UK Party, which is a very tough task, are able to form the next government, or Nigel Farage does what Donald Trump did, and this is what I predict he's going to try and do, and that is take over the Conservative Party in one way or another. I think leading up to the next general election, Robert Jenrick or Kemi Bergenog, I think more so if it was Jenrick, will realise that they're on a hard into nothing. The Reform Party are going to split so many of the votes, they can't beat Keir Starmer, and then a deal's going to be done. And at that point, with a decent election result in 2029, that's when they will still be in opposition, but Nigel Farage, with the new MPs that support him more, will take over the party. And that's why I think it will actually be 2034 where we see Prime Minister Farage. But I'm not ruling out 2029. If he could do it just through the Reform Party, that would be even better. But the problem we have over here is you've got to win all them individual MP seats. And what we see with Reform, like UKIP before, is the popularity is usually quite evenly spread across the country. So they might pick 25-30% up in a lot of places, but finishing a close second doesn't get you a single point. But please let me know what you think. What do you think about Keir Starmer and David Cameron? Do you think that they're controlled? Do you think somebody is playing a game with us where they just keep repeating history, give us a party for 10 to 15 years, tell us there's going to be change, and then bring more cuts in and more heartache on our lives? We're going to see now prices of gas, electric and food absolutely skyrocket, all in the name of saving the country because of the last government, with history repeating itself. And one reason I think that they wait 10 to 14 years is because if it happened every 5 years, people really would get wise to it. But thank you all for watching the channel, and I hope you like this video, which is a bit of a change of what we normally do. And if I could please ask you to please like and share around, and please subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. I'll see you all next time.